Hey everyone, welcome back to the next episode of the BitGo Vault. I'm joined today by the founder and CEO of Voltage, Graham Krizek. Graham, thanks for making time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I would like to just jump right in to Voltage. What is Voltage? Tell me what it is.
Yeah, sure. So Voltage is a payments platform focused on incorporating Bitcoin as the method of payment, but then giving a very familiar experience to our customers from like how they actually integrate it. So we're a very API-driven platform, really easy to kind of just connect in and be able to start sending and receiving payments on top of Bitcoin. But we can also work with our customers to really, when they're actually kind of how their business interfaces with it can be with dollars or with Bitcoin or however it kind of fits into their business. So ultimately, we're giving people the power of using Bitcoin for a method of payment, but doing it in a really seamless way that gives them a lot of power to actually have a positive business impact when they're actually incorporating the technology.
Awesome. And maybe for anyone that's watching, listening, can you just give a quick, like a very high level explanation of what Lightning Network actually is? So obviously it's built on top of the Bitcoin, but can you just give a very simple explanation of how it runs?
Definitely. Pretty much all of our transactions run over the Lightning Network, like you were mentioning, and the Lightning Network is a layer 2 network on top of Bitcoin. So it uses the same kind of trust and security that Bitcoin offers in just the layer 1, but it is a decentralized layer 2 on top of it, which is a peer-to-peer network rather than a consensus blockchain-driven network. So with that, whenever you talk about Bitcoin for payments, people always bring up slow transaction speeds of waiting for block times, and then potentially the high transaction fees of paying the miners for your transactions. Well, with Lightning, that's what it was created to solve, is to be able to transact really quickly, like less tthan half of a second is what most of our payments go through, and being able to do that with very, very low fees. We go from like 0 to sub 0.5% on the fees. So it gives the best payment experience you can get, even like really in all of crypto, but being able to get that really nice payment experience with still getting the trust and security that you get with Bitcoin. So that was what it was created to do, is just be able to, a payments channel network to solve some of the problems in Bitcoin of the speed and the cost, and really being able to enable much more use cases on top of Bitcoin.
And you've been building this for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been some years. As a Bitcoin maxi, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume
Sure.
A purist, idealist.
Sure. Yeah.
What made you believe in Lightning Network? And obviously, like, you built your company on this L2.
I mean, so when I started Voltage, I created it because I saw a big problem in the market of people that were building on top of Bitcoin or wanting to use it were starting from scratch, just over and over again, of like setting up the nodes and the channels, like all of these things that are just really complex. And I wish in my own projects that I had just like a provider you can just kind of hit an API and send a payment. No one was really providing it at the time, so that was kind of the impetus for starting it. But really, like, Bitcoin has always been, similar to BitGo. We started, focusing 100% on Bitcoin and really building tools around it because we saw the technology being so incredibly impactful for businesses and just everyone really in the world. And so we wanted to build something on top of that. And then I saw Lightning was pretty early when I was starting Voltage, but I saw it as the way of, this is how Bitcoin is going to actually get mass adoption, not only from the kind of the speculative trading and store of value. That's there, but we need the payments use case to be able to actually create the full picture of what Bitcoin was made to be. And I saw Lightning as the way of doing that. So I really wanted to both kind of bolster Bitcoin as what it was meant to be ultimately, and then do it in a way that actually made anyone that wants to integrate it and use it much easier than just having to do it all from scratch all over again.
Can you just talk about your philosophy and about the psychology kind of behind why Bitcoin is this means of exchange? Like, what makes it better? What makes Bitcoin better money than the money we use?
Couple comparisons. First, to fiat. We have all the problems that we know inside of the fiat system of the like inflation and all the censorship possibilities, like all of those things that really Bitcoin gives us an alternative to. And with the way that it was created, like those things that I was mentioning on the slow transaction times and all that are very intentional. Those are intentional parts of the network to give it the security and all the things that you need to actually have it be truly global, truly decentralized, truly censorship resistant, and all of those things. And so It was made to be that very intentionally. But with Lightning, it gives us, we don't have to sacrifice all of that power. And so when you're comparing it to like even other crypto projects or protocols or anything, Bitcoin obviously is the most decentralized and the most secure. And I don't even think that that's necessarily up for debate. It's just just looking at literally nodes on the network and all these different things, hash rate, all those things. And so the people flock to that for we don't want to just reinvent fiat on the blockchain. Like we don't want all the problems that exist there. People want the alternative that is Bitcoin, and like Lightning is the way that gives them that, but then also gives them the power of not having to sacrifice. When Bitcoin was first coming out and when Ethereum launched, people one of the reasons why Ethereum was so popular is that it gave you possibilities that you couldn't do on Bitcoin, and so that was one of the reasons why Lightning was created is we don't want to make sacrifices of like, okay, it's the strongest and the most secure, but you can't do X, Y, and Z on it. Well, that's not that's not great. There's so much more that you can do with that. And so that was what we kind of looked at for us, and also just Lightning in general, is really being able to harness more possibilities with Bitcoin and doing it in a way that we think is really strong comparatively to, obviously, to fiat. I mean, I think most of crypto is a leg up on has a leg up on fiat, but doing it in a way that I think is also competitive inside of the crypto ecosystem.
Right, you're kind of like trying to squeeze all the juice out of actually what Bitcoin can offer.
Yeah.
Actually, since we're talking about fiat, I want to kind of talk about stablecoins, right? Because Lightning is like focused on payments. Stablecoins, obviously, it's super popular for payments. Tether announced last year, I think they announced plans to bring Tether USDT to Lightning. When we talk about using Bitcoin as a means of payment versus stablecoins, right? Like stablecoins are linked to fiat, right? So, but then using stablecoins on top of Bitcoin maybe is a little, right? Is that paradoxical? I don't know. Like How do you kind of think about that? Like where does that fit into the, again, like this like purist ideology that like you're like stacking this fiat-backed asset like onto Lightning?
With the Taproot Assets protocol was really the first to bring real like asset issuance on top of Bitcoin. And then there's also been some other kind of protocols and proposals on how to bring like assets like stablecoins onto Bitcoin. And so that's been like kind of in development and being like rolled out like as we speak. But the like kind of why does that matter? Why is that important? Is obviously stablecoins have big use cases around the world, just being able to actually get access to dollars places you couldn't get access to dollars, or people don't want to spend their Bitcoin, they want to save that. That's kind of their investment that they think will hopefully go up over time, where dollars are something that you spend on a daily basis. So there's obviously, like, from the user experience, stablecoins have a very good value prop for those reasons. And then bring it in, like, why would we bring it onto Bitcoin? Well, I mean, for one, like those things that we just mentioned, of people want to transact in something like the dollar, but then being able to bring that on to Lightning gives it's a couple advantages. One, you get that same decentralized trust and security that we were just talking about. You get that with the coupling of stablecoins. That's not the end all be all, because stablecoins are kind of by nature centralized like anyway, but it does gives you some more of the base level of like things like Solana having some like uptime problems or something like that. You really can alleviate a lot of those things. But then also what I was mentioning earlier on like the speed and cost is moving value on Lightning is significantly cheaper and faster than even a Solana or other networks. And so it gives people a huge advantage when they're actually moving stablecoins, especially when you think in this day and age where, like, right now, I mean, there's stablecoin projects left and right. There's a lot of competition happening in that. And so from what we've seen, right now the market, the fees are just getting pushed down because there's so much competition. The only thing that people can really compete against is just fees. And so when you're looking at, okay, how are you going to compete against fees? Well, you have to start with how you're transacting has to be incredibly low, so you have that margin to be able to actually move low on fees. And so Lightning gives you that, where some other blockchains like Ethereum or stuff can't compete on the fee structure. So there's a lot of advantages to moving stables on Bitcoin for those reasons. And then the final bit is really just, it's a Trojan horse. There's a lot of ways that people say it, of like, you can transact in dollars and things like that, but it gives people maybe the experience of using Bitcoin or just crypto in general. And then, once, hey, I'm moving a stablecoin on Lightning, well, let me learn about Bitcoin. Like, should I should I be using that? Should I be investing in that? And so it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities into just doing more inside of that. So
it's kind of like the training wheels
Yeah.
for the network in a way.
yeah,
Yeah, I think this is also a part about Lightning that I think is very fascinating. I mean, it's like any other network. It's like exactly like how Bitcoin works. Is that that the stable coins will bring liquidity,
Mhm.
and right, because you have to have this network effect, right? It's like, correct me if this isn't a very good analogy, but like managing all the Lightning channels is a lot like the current payments networks where you have issuers, acquirers, there's the merchants, there's the card network, and there's the orchestration between all the different parties. So, and I don't know, is that accurate? Kind of like, I just went down a little. Sorry, that was a little wavy, but like, that stable coins bring liquidity. The liquidity thus feeds itself in a way.
Yeah, I mean, like overall, like yes, like I think that definitely we see like stablecoins are incredibly just popular. There's huge amounts of volume being pumped through stablecoins, and so bringing some of that like volume, that activity into Lightning does help the network from more liquidity, just more activity, all of those different things. But then it also helps the investment case for Bitcoin. People like that's I think the vast majority of people today are just buying and holding Bitcoin, which is great. But I think that for that to have long-term sustainability, where we think that price is going to appreciate over time, the fixed cap on the Bitcoin supply is a very valuable thing. But we also need to show it being used. Like the more that it's used for transactions, the more it helps the investment case of it furthers the scarcity of more volume. More Bitcoin needs to be pulled into the Lightning Network for transactions, makes it more scarce, like all of those things. So I think that the payments use case is incredibly important for the investment case of Bitcoin, which I think a lot of people miss.
I miss that. So yeah. Where are you seeing most of the adoption? Like where do you see most of the transaction volume coming? Like that Voltage is seeing
Several different sectors. I mean, we've seen a lot of like the big exchanges support Lightning over the last like couple of years. So like Kraken, Coinbase, Binance, OKX, like all of the big exchanges have it by now, and those volumes are increasing. And we work with some of them. BitGo added support for Lightning with our partnership. So we're seeing like places like exchanges, also like more like just wallets. So Cash App has had Lightning for a while, but they've definitely been ramping up their volumes and doing more and more with it as well. And then payment service providers and folks like that are kind of adding crypto as maybe alongside card and Apple Pay and whatever else. And then finally, we're seeing a lot with like iGaming as well. So like there's a lot of different sectors that are kind of really using Lightning more and more. Like where we see it heading over the next like year to 2 years is really being able to bridge like from kind of TradFi, fintech, like broadly, and bringing in Bitcoin and Lightning and these things that we're talking about into that world, because we see that we know that there's a huge amount of value for businesses or anyone that wants to transact with Bitcoin in that world. But we're actually seeing it start to happen. Us in the crypto ecosystem have talked for years about this convergence and like it's gonna happen, and like imagine when I think that it's actually starting to happen. That flywheel is starting to turn where I mean we've seen it all over the news with like the ETS kind of kicked it off, and then a lot of these public companies and people that are not crypto native companies looking at how do I use this, because I'm gonna like it is so in your face now that you're gonna get left behind if you don't do something. And so there's that convergence where that's where we see a lot of like our success coming in the next couple of years.
Do you think that there's a blocker to like get these like traditional companies to specifically with Lightning, right? So like do you like what do you think it would take for them to like really buy in, to like really start like sending a lot of volume to Lightning Network? Is there a blocker? Is it just a technological blocker? Is it like a risk? Is it's like, is there risk departments that are like kind of freaking out, or like, what are you seeing?
Definitely education is necessary in all of those, and it is a lot of talking with the operations people, the risk people, the accountants, like whoever is kind of in the mix. And that's like you always think about, okay, well, I've always approached the like adding in like Lightning or Bitcoin payments as an engineering problem, which it's really not. Like that's an aspect of it, but when you start doing that, the accountant gets involved, the lawyers get involved, like everyone else gets involved, which really it can explode like the problem. Yeah. It can get way like it can get kind of bad. And so that's where we see, I think that stuff that we're working on that we've done over the last year and we're continuing to do is just trying to bridge that gap and make it more easy to connect in. So like one of our features is being able to like send and receive payments on Bitcoin, but then we settle up with our customers with dollars via an ACH in and out of their bank account.
Voltage credit, right?
Yeah, with our it's called voltage credit is kind of the product for that. And so with that, it get like our customers are very familiar with ACH payments. Like their accounting department knows what that is. They feel good about it. They got no issues. And so if we can, basically add in Bitcoin as a feature to their platform, but do it in a way that doesn't completely disrupt their business, that's really big. And so I think that that's what we're working on, is making that crossover much more easy for just customers to do, rather than going in and pitching, hey, this Bitcoin thing is really great, you should use it, and you got to redo like all of your operations to support this new thing, and it's going to drive your accountants mad, and it's never going to work. And so just being able to meet them where they're at more and more is where we need to go.
I love this mentality. It's kind of like doing like what seemingly looks like these smaller, like really unsexy things that makes it that like connect to, for TradFi or lack of a better word, but like leaning into those to make things simpler. It's really cool. And also, again, just going back to like I mentioned something about network effects, right? Like I think, right, that like what is the Lightning Network? Again, liquidity bequeaths liquidity, and what is hard about building a network? Like about like creating these network effects, right? Like what roadblocks have you found while trying to do that? And I mean, obviously, like this is one of them, maybe, with these like little, like I say, like unsexy places where you need to kind of like pave the road. But yeah, what roadblocks have you seen?
I mean, I think the biggest roadblock, like historically, has just been like that flywheel, like you're mentioning, of like, well, if I'm trying to convince like this customer or exchange or someone to support Lightning, well, they're like, okay, like who uses it? Where can our customers buy or send from? Like who supports it on the other end? And luckily, we have a much better answer to that question now. In the early days, that was very hard. Of like, well, there's not many that support like wallets that support it. So like why would your exchange support it if no one can send like to and from the exchange on Lightning? So that has historically been a big roadblock. We're definitely over that now with places like Cash App, like supporting Lightning, and they do very large amounts of volume on Lightning. So we've been able to like really resolve a lot of that. I think those kinds of issues of the chicken and the egg problem with it. Now I think it's just a matter of like I think those things that we mentioned of just making it really normal for businesses and people to accept. And there's more that I think we can do on the UX of just crypto in general. I think crypto in general has still not quite cracked like the perfect UX problem. You think about just using your credit card at a point of sale and just like tapping it, and like it's great. I think that there's still a little bit of ways to go for Lightning, definitely, but I think crypto in general, I think that there's still some more UX stuff that we need to work out to make it as good as it really can be.
Do you think that, like, for example, you see like Stake and Shake is like accepts Bitcoin payments, and right, you say Cash App has Lightning Network, and you can use it to pay various things. Do you think that this infrastructure is going to actually get abstracted away, so that it will be more like a card, just like when you tap your card, like no one's thinking about, oh yeah, this is going from here to here, it's using this network and that network, right? Do you think all of this will eventually get abstracted away, and it'll just be I'm just going to pay?
I think that it will. I think that there will be a lot of abstraction as we continue to go along, I guess, the adoption cycles. So yeah, I think that there will be more abstraction, and I think that will ultimately, end up being, the best solution for both businesses and consumers. And that's where like being able to bring in like the technology, but doing it in a way that feels normal and native is definitely something that we're working on, and we really encourage because like we're a B2B platform, so at the end of the day, the user experience for that user, checking out or doing whatever is kind of on them, but we try and do a lot of education on how can you make this the best that it possibly can be, so that the UX is really good. But I think ultimately there will be a lot of abstraction, and I think generally speaking, like the consumer maybe won't even care, or like it'll be removed from their purview, and then like a business is using Lightning because it's the fastest and cheapest way to move like that value, settle up with their counterparties or whatever it is. So I think that ultimately a lot of abstraction will happen, and I think that'll be good for everybody.
I know that you've been an engineer for a long time. You worked at various companies, including Salesforce. How does being an engineer set you up to be a CEO of a Bitcoin infrastructure company? why and like what? Why did you like go double down on Lightning Network? Essentially, start a company in Lightning Network when it was not so popular. It was right, it's still burgeoning. Like what? Again, from engineer to founding this company for that on like a crypto, where you really founded a crypto company.
I got involved in Bitcoin in like 2012, and so I was kind of early, and I just was fascinated by it from the tech and all the things that people love about it. And so I really just wanted to. I've contributed to the ecosystem for a while, of like writing open source tech and just doing anything that I can, just kind of hobbyist kind of ways. And then, like I kind of mentioned earlier, of just I saw this problem of just people doing the hard things over and over and over again. And I really wish that I had a platform. So that's kind of what I did, was I just wrote the platform. Like that's one of the benefits of being the engineer when you're founding a company is I wrote the whole platform. This is even before AI. Now, shoot, anybody can go and do that. But it used to be a really big thing. And so I wrote the platform just kind of like nights and weekends as I could, and then got some customers on, and then investors and all of those things. And just kind of scaled from there. So I think that the engineer has been incredibly. The engineer part of me has been very helpful for being able to like really just create the earliest MVPs and get things like just in the hands of customers to see if they like it or not. But then I mean today I don't do much coding, not nearly as much as I used to. So I don't do much of it. And there's just been a lot of things that you got to learn on the fly as you kind of shift from being an engineer into like a CEO, where more of my day is in the sales and the finance, like all these other things that are podcasting, yeah, all these other things that are not engineering, and like writing code or necessarily solving those like engineering problems. So I mean, it's just a big like mental shift that just it's kind of evolved over years. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, I think that the biggest thing is for crypto specifically, at least. There's other things around like the industries that I'm sure are similar, but crypto in general is just so engineering at its core, like that it is incredibly helpful to be a technically minded like CEO, because like you can kind of suss out when you're looking at something of like, this will work, this won't work, I know we're wasting our time over here, or something like that. You can really kind of dissolve a lot of those problems that you might run into faster, just because everything is so engineering kind of at the core of what we're doing. This isn't healthcare or something that like it's very, very different. So it helps a lot in being able to actually run a company that is doing this really hardcore engineering tech.
Do you think that Voltage has kind of gone through, like you're kind of talking about this evolution of yourself from like from being like you're very technical to now more business minded? Just as you were saying that, it kind of sounds like Voltage also kind of has gone through this evolution, right? From like doing node operating to now you have a line of credit for businesses, right? So, right. So like do you feel like the company itself is also kind of maturing, evolving along with yourself? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Like when we started, we were very much like an infrastructure provider and like an AWS for Bitcoin or something like that. And we were very focused on like, developers and some like small businesses and things like that. So, and even some like kind of retail, like consumers that wanted to like run a node and stuff like that. So ultimately, we definitely we pivoted away from that and went more just kind of enterprise B2B, and did that in a way that is very focused on like kind of financial services, less than like infrastructure, more financial services, for a couple reasons. Of one, I mean, we saw early on that the market was just too small to be able like to focusing on like developer tooling at the time with what we were doing. It was just not gonna. We had sold to most of the market, and then we're like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And so we saw that, definitely saw that there's a lot of opportunity doing this for businesses. And then as we just started to work with those businesses, kind of we discovered all the other problems of like, okay, we can solve all the technical stuff of how to send payments, all those things. Well, they're asking for dashboards and like Excel spreadsheets and all the QuickBooks integrations, all these things that are like not weren't things that we originally started on. But as we worked with our customers, they're definitely asking for those things of like fiat on-off ramping and all those things that that we had to go and build. And so it's definitely been an evolution, going from like developer tooling and kind of a very niche part of Bitcoin into more financial services of like, hey, you can use this technology to actually transform your business. So it's been a huge evolution, really driven by what are our customers asking for and who can we best serve.
Right. Do you think you'll continue to on this same path? Like, do you think No crystal ball, but like, do you like, will are financial services more and more attractive, like from your executive seat?
I mean, just with the growth that we've seen over the last like year and just where we see things going, I think we've definitely found our sweet spot, and we think that we'll continue to hone in on it. So yeah, it's never say never. Who knows how things in this industry shift so fast, but I think ultimately we're definitely on the right trajectory, and we built some things that are really recently that we're really excited about, and I think can do quite a bit of have a lot of impact on businesses that we're working with. So yeah, I think that we're definitely on the right trajectory compared to where we were. And I think that we're really excited with where we're heading.
To talk about the future and not mention AI, and everyone's talking about autonomous payments, agentic payments. How does that fit in? Is that possible on Lightning? Like, is this a reality? Is it where do you see that going?
Definitely possible on Lightning. I think that actually Lightning is probably one of the best set up like networks for like agentic payments and the whole just AI payments in general, because of there's not a bottleneck into Lightning the way that there is with all the other networks. So almost every network is a blockchain consensus based network, and so with that you have limited block space, and with more blocks it gets more expensive, or you're all fighting for to get into the next block and all these things. With Lightning, it's peer-to-peer, so there's no consensus layer, and so you can basically process payments as fast as your server can handle. And so the upper threshold on how many payments you can do is incredibly high compared to other just blockchains in general, which always has some kind of ceiling. And so it's very well set up for that. And then you can also do fractions of a cent on payments on Lightning. And so some agents could have that use case of doing very, very frequent small transactions. There's kind of infinite amounts of things that agents can do, but ultimately it is set up to do it incredibly well. It's possible today. There's like protocols like L402, which is kind of similar to like the X402 by Coinbase and stuff like that. So really looking at incorporating that more and more into the workflows. I think that generally it's I'm very interested to see where the whole like AI payments go. It's early for it. It's obviously caught a lot of attention. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. I think it's too early to see exactly how it's going to play out and what it really looks like. But I think Lightning is incredibly well poised to have a big part of that.
What is I just don't understand fully, but like what the difference between programmatic payments and like agentic payments? Mm-hmm. Like, is there right because like with there were like is there a difference what's changed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's like much of a difference in that. Like, it's all about like basically having the ability of doing payments without necessarily human intervention.
Right.
And I think that's there in both. Right. Whether that's like programmatic payments just being more, I think it's just kind of like that the automation without AI necessarily. Right. So AI is just kind of another layer of a brain or whatever to be able to process the payment. So I think ultimately they're very similar, and just the big thing is being able to unlock. Machines can do things much faster than humans can, obviously, and so we need to be able to use a network that can match that same speed, which is Lightning, in my opinion. And so I think overall, like those are very similar or the same thing, but really it's what we need to be thinking about and really trying to solve is just how do we not slow down agents or software or anything with the payment protocol? Like, if we're gonna build all these things, but then the bottleneck's the payments, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I think that the payments should be able to match the speed of the machines that are doing the payments.
Interesting. It's interesting you framed it as like we shouldn't slow down the agents. We should right. I think a lot of people are saying like we should be speeding up things, and you're like, no, let's not slow down anything. Mm-hmm. The next 3 to 5 years, Bitcoin, Lightning, what are you excited about that's happening? And where do you see Lightning being in these next 3 to 5 years? Is there something you're like, oh wow, like we're at the precipice, like are we at the cusp of something big that you're super excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think like just more fuller support of stablecoins on top of Lightning, getting more assets on, getting it just in the hands of more people, I think will be incredibly impactful for the network as well as just stablecoin companies in general. So I think that's going to be definitely a big one. And I think that there's a lot of mix of different kind of like tooling that's like Lightning adjacent in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So other protocols or sidechains or different things that I think are going to be increasingly important and popular as we continue to build out the ecosystem, which all like everything that's being built on top of Bitcoin all has a Lightning strategy. Like they're all connected into Lightning. Lightning is like the highways that connect into like all of these different protocols and things like that. And so I think that will continue to bolster the network. And then yeah, just the things that I've mentioned around just being able to make Bitcoin and Lightning more digestible from like a business standpoint, and just being able to hook into a business in a way that feels normal. I think that's something like that's going to be. I feel like that's somewhat of a never-ending problem too, because there's always adaptations to how businesses are doing things, especially in the world of AI, where they're like all of a sudden businesses are just doing things differently, hopefully more efficiently, but like ultimately we have to adapt to it, and we got to make sure that we can solve the problems of what they need. So I think that there is, I think that the network itself is actually in a really great spot. It's up to people like us, like Voltage and beyond, to really get it into the hands of more people. I think that it's not necessarily like, hey, the network needs to be changed and upgraded to be able to do X, Y, and Z. There's always like protocol upgrades that you can do, but I don't think that we're hindered by that right now at all. I think that we're just hindered by the like us, like businesses, to be able to like get it into the hands of more people and really show its true potential.
Do you think that there will be multiple networks that are kind of running concurrently? So for example, right, it's like we'll have Lightning Network, we'll have, I mean, there's obviously other blockchains that are built for payments, like Stripe is building Tempo. And then of course there's also the traditional rails, right? So there are the card networks and all the other the piping. Do you think that all of these things live concurrently? And that, or do they plug into each other? Like, how do you kind of see all of that fitting together as this expands? Yeah,
it's too early to tell exactly, but I think that it will be very. I think there will be a few, like a kind of a few winners. Like we have, there's a lot of activity in like just the stablecoin space in general, or maybe just crypto payments broadly. So I think there will be like some consolidation. I think that we're going to have 50, 100 providers all the time. I think there'll be some consolidation, but it won't be like one winner takes all. So I think there will be definitely some like the crossover, the connectivity between like a Tempo and Lightning and these other networks. And so I think that it'll probably be down to like, kind of use case, maybe like they start to specialize in like a particular use case or what they're doing, or geography or something like that. So I think there will be some like specialization inside of that, but I think overall there'll be a lot of connectivity, just support where you can go from one asset or an asset on one network to the other and vice versa. So it'll hopefully end up being very seamless over time, but I think there'll be some consolidation to a few kind of blockchains or projects or whatever it is that ultimately do quite a bit of the volume or the connectivity.
This conversation's been awesome. Really appreciate you taking some time. That's it for this episode. So thanks Graham, and check out Voltage.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.